Hello, everybody. My name is Maciej Baranowski, Speaker Up. I'm the public speaker, public speaking coach, and also language trainer. I'm also a member of Toastmasters International, and today I have a big pleasure to talk to one and only world champion of public speaking 2021 and the first ever African speaker to ever win the world championship and the accredited speaker, one and only Verity Price. Verity, thank you so much for being here, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Lovely to see you again.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Great. I'm very happy to meet you again. We met in 2023 during the district conference in Lithuania in May 2023. And ever since we haven't spoken, but today we can make a short interview. So, Verity, let's start with a small introduction to all the viewers who maybe do not know Toastmasters International yet. Tell me, Verity, what is Toastmasters for you?
Toastmasters for me is this extraordinary community of people who come together to develop themselves as speakers and as leaders, but in a safe place where they can build their confidence, they can find their voice, they can learn to express themselves more effectively, and to do it with people that are all wanting to build them up and see them shine.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And how do you feel as the winner of the biggest public speaking contest ever in the world with 33,000 speakers competing together? How do you feel as the ultimate winner?
4 years later, and I'm still pinching myself. Still a surreal feeling. I feel incredibly blessed that I had the opportunity to take my speeches and my stories to that highest level. And I'm always very aware that in a competition, it's how things fall. And that was my year. And another year, it might not have been my year, but I'm so grateful that 2021 was my year.
Definitely, it definitely was your year. Great. And now let me go back to the childhood memories. What is your very first memory from the childhood?
Wow. So my earliest memories are back in Zimbabwe, the country I was born in. And I'm just trying to think. There's so many. I had much older brother and sister, so I remember them always kind of sneaking out and not wanting my parents to know that they were maybe stealing the car to go out partying. And the one time they were worried I was going to tell my parents. I was 4 years old, so they took me with them. And the next day, I walked into the kitchen and went, Mom and Dad, Kay and Murray didn't take the car last night, I promise. And everyone got into trouble.
So, and tell me, you were born actually in Zimbabwe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then your family moved to South Africa.
Yeah.
Mhm. So tell me, as a kid, did you find this kind of passion for speaking, for like, expressing yourself from the very beginning?
So I was an expressive child. I was a very confident little child initially. I wanted to be an actress. So I had big dreams. But I had a tough time at school. There was a lot of bullying. And the more that happened, the more I retreated into myself and I became quite shy and complicated. But I do remember when I was about 16, I was asked to do a talk at school. We call them orals in South Africa, but we'd have to do a talk on a subject. And I was speaking about Beethoven, the famous composer. And I'd worked on my little 3-minute talk and I did it for my father. And he was like, yeah, that was good, but I'm not sure you're going to get their attention. He said, what if you started your speech by standing up and then and get the audience confused and go, could you not hear me? And they'd go, no, and say, well, imagine how Beethoven felt.
Oh, wow.
And that was my first introduction to a powerful introduction, and realizing that communication is so much more than just what you say, but it's how you say it and how you plan it. But it was still many more years before I became a speaker.
Okay, I can see. So first there was like the acting career, and then singing career. So, so what happened in between?
So my singing was the first thing I tried in my 20s. And in order to be a singer, I needed to pay the rent and make money. So what I started doing was going to auditions for TV commercials. In fact, I did one for Poland for a chips commercial many years ago. I was one of the girls at work. And so I started doing commercials and TV adverts. And then as I was singing and doing a little bit of TV work, I started getting opportunities to do small movies. And so I'm one of the few people who I think can say they paid for their singing career with the acting career. But it was a lot of fun. I won't say I was particularly good, but the roles I got, I did a good job with. But I'm not sure if there was ever more I could have done.
Okay, but
Yeah.
how did you find the voice that you realized you can sing? What was the moment you realized, okay, I can sing, I have a great voice?
Well, I don't know if I ever had that moment, to be
Oh.
honest. My journey was a little bit back to front. On my 20th birthday, I was studying psychology at university. I thought I was going to be a psychologist. And I was sitting contemplating being 20 and what did I want to do with my life. And out of nowhere, I felt compelled to pick up a pen and start writing. And when I finished, it was clear that I'd written lyrics to a song, because it was a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus. I was like, wow, what do I do with this? And they kept coming. And then I had to teach myself to write music. And then I had to see if I could sing it. So for a long time, I was quite nervous about my voice. And it took working with great vocal coaches to help me build confidence to find my voice, my singing voice.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you also mentioned during your keynote speech in Lithuania, this great story, how you became one of the first ever in the world crowdfunder. Yeah, collecting money for your very first music album. How did you come up with this great idea?
Oh, wow. Well, that was a special moment. I had been performing professionally for about 2 years. I wanted to record an album. I got feedback from producers of how much it could cost, and I didn't have the money. And so for a long time, I was stuck because I didn't have the money. And I think a lot of us do this. You've got the dream, and then you've got the obstacle, and then we sit here going, oh, look, I can't get there. Mm-hmm. And eventually I realized I either needed to give up and walk away from the dream, or I needed to get creative. And luckily I chose to get creative. So I sat down with my sister, who is 12 years older than me and a lot wiser.
Also a speaker.
Also a speaker, also a world semi-finalist. It runs in the family. And Kay and I used an incredible little book called The Six Thinking Hats by Edward de Bono on problem solving. And we used his method to find a way to come up with raising the money to record my album. And through that process, we had this idea of, why not ask people to buy my album before I record it? Why not ask them to buy something that doesn't exist yet? And at the time, and this is 2004, we didn't even have Facebook in South Africa. There was no Kickstarter. There was no GoFundMe. We had no idea that idea, when we started running with it on my website, was actually one of the world's first online crowdfunding projects. And it changed my life. 2,000 people in 25 countries bought an album that didn't exist.
Wow.
And through them buying it, I was able to record. I donated some of the money to charity. But when I released the album, it didn't go anywhere because all people wanted was for me to come and speak about innovation, about thinking differently, about overcoming problems. And I was like, what? This wasn't the plan, but it was life's plan for me.
Okay, so it turned actually from music into speaking.
Yeah, completely.
I also remember from your keynote speech that you told us a story of an anecdote actually, how you entered the stage and tripped over. I think it can be a great inspiration to all the speakers, fighting with stage fright. Could you tell me a little bit more about the situation?
Yes, absolutely. So it was a speaking opportunity that I had in South Africa for a very big audience, maybe 700 people. And I was standing backstage feeling excited to get on stage, because this is the thing to understand about stage fright. The emotion of fear and terror happens in the same part of our brain that can feel excited. So there's always a choice, am I terrified about this, or I'm actually excited?
Okay.
And because I've been speaking for a while, I'd learned to change the nervousness into excitement. So I was feeling very excited. And the MC was getting the audience to go, like, there's the singer, she's going to tell you her story. Please welcome Verity Price. And everyone was clapping. And I came running up those stairs like nothing was going to stop me. But then I hit the last step and I tripped and I fell face first in front of 700 people. And there was this from the audience. There was this absolute shocked moment, because right there, I think, is why a lot of people don't ever want to go on stage. What if I fall on my face? And I was lying face first in front of 700 people. And in that moment, I was okay. And so I turned around and I looked at them and I said, I was still lying on the floor. And I said, you know what? I can only go up from here.
Oh.
They laughed, I laughed. It actually created an incredible moment of connection. And only afterwards, I realized that what I'd learned in that moment was what true confidence is. And that is the ability to be okay when things aren't okay. Stop trying to be perfect, just know that you're going to make mistakes. But if you're okay, you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and carry on.
Wow.
So it was a beautiful moment.
Wow. I've been inspired already. Like, really amazing. Like, confidence is being okay when things are not okay around you.
Mm.
What a great quote. What a great quote. Putting your career in the timeline. When did you start your acting career? In the timeline?
So I started singing at 27. I started acting at 28.
Okay.
I started speaking at 32, 33.
Okay.
I stopped singing at about 36. I stopped acting around, 2 years ago is the last time I did a commercial, but at least at about 38, I stopped acting. And so from 36 onwards, I was teaching, doing keynotes, facilitating processes for companies.
Great. So kind of speaking combined acting and singing, I would say, on the stage.
Yeah, very
Great.
much.
I remember also you mentioned that you were already a professional speaker before you joined Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And you were like making keynote speeches regarding your like singing career, yeah? Great. So how did you find Toastmasters then?
My sister found Toastmasters. Well, actually, to be fair, my brother found Toastmasters many years earlier in Johannesburg, and we used to hear about it. And then in 2010, Kay decided to join because she was very afraid of public speaking. And she told me she had joined and she was trying this thing. And I said, wow, good luck. And then in January 2011, she said to me, I'm doing my first speech. It's called an icebreaker. Please, can you come and support? So I went. I had no idea what to expect from a Toastmasters meeting. I was just there to support my sister. But what blew me away was the support around her, how all the members were saying, good luck for your speech. You've got this. And when she finished, and she was so nervous doing her first speech, when she finished, they all stood up and they gave her a standing ovation. And in that moment, I looked at that and I just had this yes feeling about the organization. And I was a member at the very next meeting. I was a member.
So it was like 2011?
Yeah.
2011. Okay.
Yeah.
You joined the club in Johannesburg?
In Cape Town.
Okay, in Cape Town. Great. And tell me, your very first meeting as the member, do you remember when you were like officially the member of Toastmasters?
I don't. I remember my icebreaker, and I'm not sure how many meetings in. I might have done that quite early on. So I remember doing my icebreaker. And within 3 months of being a member, I was already on the committee as the club treasurer. So I just dove straight into being a member.
Okay. And your very first speech, the so-called icebreaker, for those who maybe don't know, right? Icebreaker speech. Do you remember your first speech?
I do. I built it around the motto that I had for my singing on all my posters. It was speak your truth, live your dreams, be you. And that was kind of my motto, my call to action. And so I shared with the club about how I spoke my truth, how I was living my dreams, and how I was being me. But I would need to look at it to see what I said exactly.
But could you imagine back then at the very first meetings that one day you would become the world champion of public speaking for the biggest organization with 16,000 clubs around the world in 150 countries?
No. When I hear you say that, I'm like, really? Did that happen?
So what was your like very first significant achievement at Toastmasters when it comes to the contests?
My most insignificant achievement was my first contest, where I came second to my sister. Who that year went all the way to the semi-finals.
So it was the club level, right?
Club level, yeah.
Okay.
And then I watched her go through the levels, and I was humbled, but I was also inspired by how hard she'd worked. And I suddenly understood what you had to put into a contest if you wanted to win it. Significantly, it was in 2015 that I competed again, and I managed to go all the way to the district level, where I became the evaluations champion for Southern Africa. And that was a huge achievement for me, and I was so proud that I'd had the opportunity and that it worked on the day, because you never know when you're giving feedback on a speech. But that was a big moment for me.
And I remember your video. I need to tell you something. When I was like preparing for my evaluation contest at the district level back in 2022, I was like looking for some champions, for some videos to watch and get ready for the contest myself. And I saw your video and I was like, how on earth can we deliver the evaluation in 3 minutes and 25 seconds and be so specific, quote the speaker, finish it with a motivational line, give 2 good points, 2 commendations, actually 3 recommendations. And I was like, it was amazing. I was like watching your evaluation. I almost memorized it. But really,
wow.
It was about love, right?
Yes.
The speech we were evaluating was about love.
Yes, you're spot on. But you know what? Sometimes you just have a good day, and that was a good day for me. It just all came together, and I felt very blessed. I mean, it was the day before my 40th birthday, and it felt like the best way to leave my 30s and start a new decade.
I remember especially this one line from your evaluation you delivered. It was, when it comes to love, seek it, nurture it, and please strike again.
Yes, and that was from his speech. So
That
I
was,
just was
yeah,
referring back to what he'd said. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
You referred to the speech. And actually, 1 year later, in 2023, I made it to the district finals again in the evaluation. And it was in Lithuania. I got better prepared. And who was in the audience? Yes.
You were amazing. You were absolutely world class.
Thank you so much. But I remember, like, when I was approaching the stage to deliver my evaluation of the speaker during the contest at the district level, I noticed you. And I noticed you clapping your hands, like, very lively, very happy, smiling. And when I noticed you, I was like, okay, Maciej, do your best. That's your day. If Verity is clapping and supporting you, there is nothing else, to motivate you more.
Oh, wow.
So thank you so much for that, because your smile helped me a lot when I was like watching the audience. I couldn't notice the test speaker who delivered the speech I was evaluating, and I was like looking for a test speaker. Where's the test speaker? And I couldn't find him.
Oh,
But I didn't want to ask where is the test speaker, so I just continued with the evaluation. But when I noticed you smiling, I was like, okay, Maciej, you're doing good. So,
oh, wow. Well, you were. And just carrying on is that ability to be okay with things not being okay. I can't see the test speaker, so what? I just keep going. So that was brilliant.
thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for your smile and support back in Lithuania. And going back to your speech history, so 2015, you won an evaluation contest, right? So you were evaluating the speech and you became the champion for the Southern Africa, right? 6 countries.
Yeah. Mm.
Mm-hmm. And
Well, I don't know, a lot of
a lot
countries.
in Africa based, for yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. For those who don't know, in Toastmasters, we have like geographical units called districts, right? And the evaluation contests, it can be even for that to choose the best speaker in like a few countries. In my district 108, it's like 7 countries actually, right? So it can be like international contest. So to win it, it's an achievement. So 2015, you basically won the evaluation contest. You became the dean. You basically won the evaluation contest. You became the district champion, which is the highest level you can achieve in this category. What about other contests? Like we also have a Toastmasters, table topics, humorous. Did you also participate? I know you did.
Yeah, so humorous, I came second at district in 2012, actually. And that was a lovely journey. And it was so nice to not win a contest and be completely happy because the person who won was so much funnier than any of us. So that's for me always an easy way to place. When you can see someone's brilliant, it's obvious. So that was a lovely experience. And so then 2015, I won evaluations at district. And then there was a few times I kept placing with impromptu and I couldn't make the district contest. So I had to pull out. But in 2019, when I was 6 months pregnant, I went to the district with impromptu where I came second.
And then you left Toastmasters for 2 years.
Well, no, actually, it was only for about 6 months
Okay.
because my little boy was born and then the world went into lockdown and I could join virtually because we were stuck at home.
Okay. Yes, of course, it was the pandemic time, 2020. Okay, the COVID pandemic, of course. But
Yeah.
you joined the contest in 2020 or only in 2021?
2021.
And it was
Yeah.
the golden contest for you when you won. Tell me
Yes.
about this inspiring journey, how you managed to become the world champion from start to the end.
Oh, wow. Well, it was a very inspired journey. I was inspired by the 2020 world champion, Mike Carr,
Mhm.
whose message in his winning speech was the victory is not in the result, the victory is in the try. And that really spoke to me about the fact that I hadn't been competing. And then a few weeks later, I did a speech at the club where I shared a story about my mum and how she used to teach me growing up to leave the world better than I found it. And after the club meeting, I logged off and I was brushing my teeth and I was thinking about the speech. And I suddenly thought, hang on, that's a good topic for a speech contest. And about a second later, a little voice inside me said, and if you do that, you will be the next world champion. And I had this moment of like, what? Like, where did that come from? But there was this inner knowing that I was going to win. And it made no sense. I didn't even want to tell anyone. I didn't even want to say it out loud, but I decided I was going to enter and I was going to see if I could win it and if I could win it for Africa. And so I started working on that speech about 2.5 months before the club contest. I delivered it at open house meetings where I was getting feedback. And then I slowly started going through the levels, winning and rewriting it and changing it. I mean, the way it changed from club to my district was huge. It was almost a different speech each contest. And just before the district contest, I reached out to a world champion, the 2005 world champion, Lance Miller, to ask him to look at my speech because we'd met each other when he'd been on a visit to South Africa. And he very kindly agreed to have a coaching session with me. And I arrived on the coaching session feeling quite confident because my speech had been winning and I thought it was a great speech. And then he just started telling me all the things that I needed to change. And it was so hard to hear. I didn't want to even take notes. I was going, oh, well, he won a long time ago. What does he know? And eventually, halfway through the session, I started writing notes.
Oh.
I rewrote the speech. And I believe that it was through his feedback and the way I rewrote it. Not only was it good enough to win the district final, but it was good enough to get me into the top 28 speakers in the world for the semifinals. Now, the interesting thing is if you win a district, you have to wait 6 weeks to hear if you've made the top 28. And there's a choice in what district winners do with those 6 weeks. They can either just wait to hear if they've got through and then start trying to write a second speech in case they make the world finals, because you need a new speech for that. Or they can use the 6 weeks and look for a second speech. And that's what I did. I looked and I wrote about 7 different speeches before I came onto a speech about my dad and how he'd encouraged me to write a different story about my life and how that had changed my life. And then we waited. I was delivering both speeches, even though I wasn't a semi-finalist. It felt quite like, am I being arrogant? Should I be doing this? But I thought, let me act as if I'm going to the semis. Mm-hmm. And so when we heard I was, then I had 6 weeks to rehearse both speeches at as many clubs around the world as I could, to embrace the feedback I got. And I got a lot. Keep changing, keep growing, keep working. And at one point, my husband said to me, Verity, you're acting like you're going to the Olympics. I said to him, yes, this is the Olympics of speaking.
It really is, yes.
It is. It is. It was about 3 to 4 hours every day. I was working on the speeches, recording myself, watching back, making a change, recording again. It was relentless. Mm-hmm. But ultimately it paid off because the vision I'd had in 2020 manifested itself in August of 2021 when I heard the announcement that I was the new world champion.
That's right. And tell me, before this huge success, you were like practicing 2 speeches before the semifinal, the world championship, after the district championship. You were like practicing 2 speeches simultaneously?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sometimes I'd go to a club meeting, I would do the one, stop, do the next one.
Wow. One after another. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that actually. Okay, great. And what about the capacity for feedback? Because what I've learned also from my own experience, we all have different capacity for feedback. Sometimes we can feel overwhelmed, especially, if we are a public speaker who is like performing in different places, meeting different people, receiving feedback from very different, I would say, from different environments, right? How did you feel overwhelmed at some point?
The feedback was overwhelming. I had more than 200 pieces of written feedback and verbal feedback over 3 or 4 months. And what I had to learn to do was look for themes in the feedback. I couldn't respond to every piece because it's also people's opinions. So I would start to look, if I've done the speech in India and then in Bahrain and then in London, and I've heard the same kind of feedback coming up, then I knew I needed to work on a change. It was hard not to take some of the feedback personally. It was, I mean, most people were rooting for me. They were incredibly supportive. They were giving feedback from a very kind place. And then there was people that weren't. And I had experiences on Zoom where I'm getting private messages. Who do you think? You're never going to get anywhere. What do you know, this is not a good speech. And that would be coming at me while I'm smiling on Zoom. And I had someone do verbal feedback at a club saying, if this was a club speech, I would have marked this at 50%. This isn't going anywhere. So I had some feedback that stopped me in my tracks, and I had to regroup, go talk to my coach, talk to my sister who was mentoring me, ask my husband to keep me on track. So it wasn't always easy. And I think it's important to really consider the source. Who's giving you the feedback and how seriously are you going to take it?
Okay, I see the point. And tell me, did you have the moments of a doubt that you were like doubting if the speech is good enough to win?
100%. Even though a part of me knew I was going to win, most of me was like, really? What do you think? That's not good enough. So that is what pushed me. That is why I kept working on them, kept improving them, kept trying to find fresh ways to deliver them. So doubt is an incredible driver. If you let it, instead of stopping you in your tracks, if you let it fuel you so that you keep moving forward and keep improving. But yeah, the doubt was definitely there. Every contest, when they were announcing the winners, after they'd announced the second place, there was always at least one other speaker. I was like, oh, it could have been them. And I was just very lucky. It was always my name that was called.
That is great. And tell me, when it comes to the speeches for the contest, because I've heard very different opinions that we should go with the first speech we think is the best one to get to the final. And then the speech for the final, which needs to be changed, the final speech for the top 8 speakers in the world, is usually the second choice. Do you agree with that?
So it's a hard one, because I think if people watch a lot of world finals, you'll see that playing out. You will see quite weak speeches at that level because someone held back their second best speech just in case they got to the finals. So my theory is you need to have 2 world-class speeches. You can't be going, oh, you should have 2 world-class speeches that you could swap and they both are winners. Not always easy to do. I think it's why I get a lot of work coaching people, because we're all trying to go, how do we make them world-class? But it's also a personal choice, because only 8 people will get to give their second speech at the finals. So sometimes people do choose, I'm on the semi-final stage, let me give my best speech because this might be the only speech I give.
I see.
It's a tough one, yeah.
What about performing online? Were you practicing in person at the meetings, stationary meetings, I would say, or you were mostly practicing online?
We were in full lockdown, so there were no meetings. So
okay.
the entire year, we were locked at home. So it was a very unusual way to compete. And I often think it's the only way I would ever have become the world champion, because I had a small baby. I wouldn't have been going to meetings. So it was life aligned for me in that year. And I'm so grateful, because I don't think there's any other way I would have won.
What do you think? Is it very different to perform online from performing in person? I mean, was it difficult for you to adjust to the new circumstances?
So it's an interesting one. In online, it's hard because you're not getting an audience reaction, but it's easy because you can imagine you're getting a great audience reaction. In person, if you say something that's normally meant to be funny and no one laughs, the judges are picking up on that because they're reading the audience. Online, the judges have no audience to read off. They're just watching your speech. So I don't think that they're the same type of contest.
I remember one of the lines from your final speech. Raise your virtual hand if you agree.
Oh, that was my semi-final.
So
Yeah.
you also adjusted, interaction with the audience you actually couldn't see. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just imagining, I was like, raise your virtual hand if when you were a teenager, your mother gave you unwanted advice. So I tried to make it interactive, and I had to imagine people at home were going, yeah. But with a live audience, maybe no one put their hand up, and then you, oh dear. So that's the difference. That's the difference.
That's right. And how did you feel after your final performance? After the speech, a great read, right?
I felt good. It was the best I was going to give. It was very hard because it was pre-recorded and we had to wait 3 days to hear the contest results.
Oh, so it wasn't live on Zoom.
No, because of Zoom, they couldn't risk any, technical failures. So they were pre-recorded. Our semi-final was recorded at the beginning of August. We had to wait 3 weeks to hear if we'd made the finals.
Wow.
And when you heard you'd made the finals, it was 6 hours and you had to be ready to record.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Very different.
How did you deal with this pressure of waiting, of anxiety?
Whew. Well, the one upside of it was for the semifinals, once I'd recorded that, then for 3 weeks, I was just practicing my final speech in case I made the finals. So it was useful. But after I recorded the finals, I just did things that were going to fill me up. So my sister and I went to a spa, we had massages, we spent time together, and I just distracted myself until we watched the contest online.
I see. Tell me, how can we be authentic on the stage, but also meet the judging criteria for these speech contests? Be authentic, but also meet the criteria. What is your method?
I think it shouldn't be hard if you are speaking about something you've lived, because the judging criteria are speech development, value to audience, originality, the language you've used, your body language, your vocal variety, and your manner. Now, all of those things can exist within an authentic speech. So you don't need to change who you are to meet those criteria, but how you tell your story needs to be authentic to you and not staged. No, I'm going to be dramatic. It's more, let them know how you were feeling and come from that place rather than this place.
I remember your advice after my performance at the district in Lithuania, because I was also participating in the international speech contests. And you told me that actually I should speak to people as if I was speaking to my friends, at the campfire, at the fireplace, sitting and listening to the stories. And it was actually a great advice. So do you have any other tips you want to share with the future world champion?
Oh, gosh. I think that, my tips for anyone who's competing in this is if you get to the highest levels of the semifinals or finals, you've got 7 minutes to speak to the world. You've got 7 minutes to share something with people that can add value to them, that can change their hearts and their minds, and tell that story. Really go, what changed my heart? What changed my mind? And share that. And share it not from a space of, I hope I'll win, but I hope this is growing me as a speaker and will allow my audience to grow too.
That is great. And tell me, after the victory, how did your life change? Did you get your keynote speech already done, prepared? How did it look like?
So after I won, I was exhausted, and I was very lucky that the day after I won, Mike Carr, the 2020 world champion, had a Zoom call with me. And he said, I'm just going to give you advice I wish I'd had when I won. And that is, do nothing for the first 6 weeks. Integrate, come to peace with the fact that this has happened, relax, sleep, do the interviews you need to, but use that time to reflect on everything that helped you win, what you've learned, and use that to develop a keynote or a talk that you can then share with other potential winners, people who are trying to compete in this contest. And that was the most beautiful advice, because it allowed me to step back and to really integrate the win. And then when I started serving districts and doing masterclasses and keynotes, I had developed what I'd learned, and I shared that back to people.
I can see. So how did your career change when it comes to, like, professional public speaking, being the coach, the mentor of future champions?
I would say from a career perspective, it quadrupled what I was earning and how much I was working. It opened up so many doors. It's opened me up to the world. It's been an absolute gift professionally. It's been extraordinary.
I also know you worked with the Angeli Ravenfitch. Last year, third place in the World Championship with the speech, replaced by Sophia. How did you feel when your mentee became the top and actually joined the top 3, the best speakers in the world?
You should have heard me screaming. It was 2 o'clock in the morning here. I was so excited for her. It was our second year working together. She is the most incredible speaker to coach and to work with. I mean, we feel like we know each other so well, but we live oceans apart. It was the best feeling ever. And I've been very lucky, because the year before that, Mariam Ghani came third in the world, and I was in the audience to watch her place, and I'd been working with her. And the year before that, Maz Mathatia came third in the world, and I'd been coaching him. So it's the best feeling to watch people that have put in that work, who've treated it like the Olympics, take it to the finals and place. And that just is even more fulfilling than winning myself, to be honest.
Oh, as the mentor, actually. Okay.
Yeah. It's just the best feeling in the world.
Okay, great. So when it comes to, like, the entire process of preparing for the contests, what is the most challenging part? Also from the perspective of a mentor, actually.
I think it's maintaining your energy and your conviction that you can do it. I think that the hardest part of it all is between here, and it's managing that doubt, that negative self-belief, those fears. It's managing them constructively and remembering that I've got this far. I have something to give. Let me just show up and give it again, and trust if I'm meant to go forward, I will. And that's not easy.
Definitely. And tell me, what's next for the Verity Prize?
So next for me is continuing to work with speakers that are wanting to win this contest and see how far they can go and how they can grow. So I love that. My corporate work keeps me very busy teaching presenting skills into organizations. And I think next for me is more balance. So more time with my family, special holidays, because that's also part of just resetting, so that I can find new inspiration, whether it's a book or a program. But that's what's next for me. At the moment, I'm busy putting together a really cool online course called Conquering Contests for people who can't afford to work with a world champion one-on-one. They can buy the course, and it's 25 short modules, little worksheets for them to assess and work through developing a speech and delivering it, with insights of what I learned makes a difference, how to do it. So I'm excited to put that out into the world while also staying balanced.
Okay. I already actually bought your book, Present with Power. Yes. In Lithuania. I absolutely love it.
I know. Thank you.
And now we have a course, Conquering Contests, right?
Yeah, Conquering Contests.
That's
to help people get the mindset right, to find the speech, to write the speech, and to deliver the speech, and understand what the judges are looking for, but still bringing their authentic self.
That's actually amazing. Are you still a member of Toastmasters International?
I am. I'm not a very good member. I serve the broader organization, and my poor club see me once or twice a year, but I've served on their committee in the background. I am still a member, just not very visible.
Okay, I see. So what is your club, actually?
Toasted Toastmasters. They are amazing. In Cape Town. Yeah, toasted.
I have a question to you. Would you like to visit my club in Poland? It's called Verbal Victory.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that's the
Yes,
name.
we can make a plan.
Yes, it's on Mondays, actually, every single week at
Okay.
I think it's 6:30 my time, so it should be 7:30, I think, your time, South Africa
Yeah,
time.
that could work.
That would be
We can make
amazing.
a plan. So just, yeah, let's make it happen.
Great. I would be so happy to have you. Maybe next week.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, let's chat. We'll make it happen. I can't promise next week.
Because Luisa Montavlo will be there next week.
Ah,
Yeah.
oh wow. Okay. Oh, you better send me some details.
Yes, I will definitely to spare you more details. Before we finish, I just want to ask you, what is your favorite quote you want to share with our viewers?
One of my favorite quotes that, and I can't remember who said it, is, and my dad used to say it, there are people, I've got to remember it. There are people who let things happen. There are people who make things happen. And there are people who wonder what the hell happened. Which person do you want to be?
Wow, great. I love it. I love it. Okay. Can I use it in my speech?
Yes. Just go find out who said it, because I can't remember.
I will for sure. I will for sure. Okay, great. At the very end, could you say hello to my club Verbal Victory?
Hi, Verbal Victory. I love your name. I can imagine you are setting up all your members to have exactly that, Verbal Victory. And I hope you all continue to find your voice, share your stories, and present with power.
And also my second club, which is Poznań Toastmasters.
Hi, Post-Night Toastmasters, Verity Price, 2021 World Champion here. Just to say a big hello. I hope you are all stepping up, speaking up, and letting the world know your messages, because they matter.
And the Toastmasters Polska.
You want me to message for Toastmasters Polska?
The last message.
Hello, Toastmasters Polska. Verity Price, 2021 World Champion of Public Speaking here. I know you are happy to be home to the 2022 World Champion, Cyril Jr. Dim. He and I share a birth country in common, and I hope that we see many more speakers from Poland on the world stage, sharing your stories and inspiring the world.
Thank you so much, Verity. I really appreciate your time today. I love your energy. Every time we meet, either in person or online like today, I can feel this inspiration that comes from you. Thank you so much for everything you did actually for the Toastmasters community, not only being the world champion 2021, the best speaker in the world, but also the DTM and the accredited speaker. So thank you so much for all the value you brought into the life of Toastmasters International, into my life, of course. So I wish you best of luck in your endeavors and hope to see you very soon.
Thank you, Maciej. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Verity.